Hi, this is Gautam, and for today's episode of Atlas Agenda, we're going to focus on the African continent, specifically Sudan. Now, if you take Sudan, Sudan has been in news for quite a few years. In fact, in the year 2023-24, in the year 2024, there was a question on Sudan itself regarding civil war and conflicts. And first, I'll just give you a simple overview before we go to the specifics of location and physiography. So, if you take Sudan's recent history, uh, from 1989 to 2019, it was under dictatorship of Umar al-Bashir. And after the dictatorship, in 2019, there was a military coup. And after the coup, there was an attempt to establish a democratic government. But again, the democratic experiment failed in the year 2021, where there was a second military coup, where two military officers took control of Sudan. Problem is, their mutual agreement broke down, and in the year 2023, April the 15th, the serious civil war started. And today it is considered as one of the uh, largest humanitarian crises in the world by the United Nations. So we have two warring sides. On one side, we have the Sudanese armed forces, which mostly control the eastern part of the territory. And on the other side, on the western side of Sudan, we have the rapid security forces. So that's a simple overview on what is the short history of the region and the conflict right now. Now let's go to location aspect. Always remember, more than the news, what you try to do is read around it. So if you take Sudan, its location is strategically significant for few reasons. It is surrounded by 7 countries. It is present in northeastern Africa. As you can clearly see, there is an important border of Sudan towards your Red Sea. This makes Sudan strategically important. Now, beyond this border, what is the physiographical importance? It is because of the river Nile. Now, all of you would know that Nile is the longest river in the world. It starts close to Lake Victoria, and starting from Lake Victoria, it traverses through extremely long distances before crossing Sudan and then reaching Egypt, where it forms its very wide delta. Point to be noted is, in Sudan, we have the merger of a major tributary called as Blue Nile. Blue Nile starts from the country of Ethiopia, and recently, Ethiopia courted controversy when it opened a dam called as the Grand Renaissance Dam, which was constructed across Blue Nile. So the place which you're looking for is the capital city called as Khartoum. So let's go for a zoomed in version of the region. This will kind of give you an idea of where and how the water resources of Sudan is concentrated. As you can clearly see, it is on the eastern side, because western side of Sudan is more rugged and mountainous terrain. So you will see that rivers are starting from there and then moving towards multiple directions. Some are getting lost in parts of the desert. But it's the eastern part of Sudan, which is more important for water, which has a large volume of livestock resources and agriculture. So you will see that this is a segment of White Nile and this is the segment of Blue Nile, both of them merging in the city of Khartoum, which makes Khartoum a significant place, not just as Sudan's capital, but also for water resources. And it continues to move towards parts of Egypt. Beyond water resources, we need greater clarity on locational understanding. Why is the civil war considered important? It's because of the players who are around Sudan. Understand that Sudan has large volume of gold reserves. And based on the data from the years 2023 and 24, 97% of this gold was exported to the country of United Arab Emirates, which you would clearly see is not prominent in this map. It's present right here to the eastern side of Saudi Arabia. So UAE is a country which is located very far away. But based on several reports from journalists, we understand that multiple countries are involved in the conflict in Sudan. We have documented evidences of Russia. We have weapons manufactured from Serbia, United Arab Emirates, and even China, which are involved in this protracted conflict. So why are they involved? Look at the location again. Again, the news is different, but the location aspect is different. Sudan gives you access to two different parts. If you look at the areas which are controlled by the Sudanese armed forces, we already mentioned that there is a border towards Red Sea. The important city right there is Port Sudan. And through Sudan, it is possible to access your Suez Canal. At the same time, it's possible to access your Strait of Bab el Mandeb. And you would remember that this corridor holds 12 to 15% of global trade. So that naturally makes Sudan important. So it is bordering Eritrea on the southeastern side, and it is bordering Egypt on the northern side. Again, both countries have their border with Red Sea, which is significant for your mapping perspective. Now let's come to the western side. In the western side, you have countries, Libya, second country being Chad, and the third country being Central African Republic. Now, all these regions are significant because they are politically volatile. Take Libya. Libya has two functioning governments. At the same time, you take Chad. Chad is under a military rule. At the same time, Central African Republic is a developing country which already has to deal with a lot of developing nation issues like poverty and then low levels of per capita income. So, point to be noted is, if you take western part of Sudan, it is western part of Sudan which has significant volume of the gold reserves which I mentioned. If you look at total oil reserve distribution in Sudan, again, a larger segment of oil falls on the western part of Sudan. So the eastern area has more water, has more resources for agriculture and livestock, has greater connectivity towards your Red Sea. The western part of Sudan has got more minerals. At the same time, it is possible to access multiple trafficking routes for armed insurgent organizations. Now, finally, let's go towards south and southeastern part of Sudan. As you remember, the last two countries which border them are South Sudan and then finally Ethiopia. So we just mentioned the importance of Ethiopia. This is where you have the Blue Nile originating, where they have constructed their Grand Renaissance Dam. And South Sudan, in fact, is the youngest country in the world. It was formed in the year 2011 after a serious civil war with Sudan itself. It got fragmented. It was felt by the international community that after the breakaway of South Sudan, that things would return to normal. But again, a new conflict had arose. So to wrap things up, keep that in mind, that Sudan is a very important country which is bordering seven other nations, starting from Egypt and Eritrea, Libya, Chad, and Central African Republic, and finally South Sudan and Ethiopia. And now, before I wrap up, there is a reason I placed that map. Recall that Khartoum has the confluence of White Nile and Blue Nile. That Sudan has significant reserves of gold, most of which is exported to United Arab Emirates, because UPSC can ask you match the following questions telling you which mineral is present in which country. And lastly, please remember that these two terms are frequently in use. The word Darfur and Kordofan. This is where conflict is quite serious. And in your final examination, there is always a chance where UPSC can ask you match the following question saying region in news, and then this region is present in which particular country. So I have mentioned four regions based on the articles which they were present in. But in these four regions, the most common ones which are repeated again and again are Darfur and Kordofan. And for that, please remember that those two are large areas. Darfur is the western region, Darfur. And lastly, the second region is Kordofan. So this is where we have serious conflicts because that is where both the forces collide. So with that, I will leave you with the final question. I've always told you before, what you focus on tells you what you miss. So this time we are directing our attention not to Sudan but to Red Sea. So the question is pretty simple. How many of the above countries here border Red Sea? Yemen, Sudan, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia. Think about what we discussed and you can leave your answer in the comments. I will meet you with the next episode soon. Bye for now. Thank you.